The Seasoned Saints Ministry of the Alfred Street Baptist Church is proud and honored to present This Is My Story, a documentary series presented in conjunction with our church's annual celebration of Black History Month, which highlights the lives of prominent movers and shakers within our community. We now present to you our 2017 This Is My Story video series.
I am Juanitta Bernice Patience Moss, and this is my story. I consider myself to be a very eclectic person. I have a lot of interests, such as playing the piano and reading and gardening. And after retirement, I had planned to do some other interesting things, such as learning to speak Spanish, quilting, oil painting, but I've done none of these things. Instead, I have written 8 books. I was born 84 years ago, almost 85, in a small town in Pennsylvania called West Pittston. It's between Wilkes-Barre and Scranton. My parents were Cora and Edgar Patience. There was no Jim Crow as we know of that. We did not have to ride on the back of the bus. We did not have signs that said colored and white. But was there discrimination? Of course. The heart I'm wearing was made by my father. My father learned his skills from his father, Harry, who had wanted to go into the mines when he was 10 years of age. Well, you say, why would he want to go in at such a young age? Because all the European boys were going in 7 and 8 years of age just to earn a few pennies to help the family. My grandfather wanted to do likewise, but my great-grandfather and his wife, who could neither read nor write, were determined that their 8 children would attain an 8th grade education, and that they did. And so my grandfather Harry, at age 14, went into the mines, and one of the things that he would do in his spare time would be to whittle small objects out of anthracite coal, the heart being one of them. And so the signature piece for the Patience business was a heart, and so that's why I am wearing one today. One of the highlights of my life is that a piece of my father's work is now being displayed at the Smithsonian Museum of African American History. My generation was the first to be encouraged to go to college at all. The area was filled with the descendants of the coal miners, and their first aspirations would be to finish high school. And then in the 1950s, there were several local colleges that opened, and children of the coal miners were now entering school. Girls were not encouraged to do much of anything but to wait until they got married. For instance, when I entered Wilkes College in 1950, I was in a medical technology program that was for 2 years. But I was a biology major. I had to take the same courses as all the pre-med students, and the classes were filled with ambitious men who were veterans of World War II, and they were serious students. And so we were challenged by the men to do well in those fields. I fell in love with zoology during my freshman year and then continued in that field. I became an author in 1998 because of the monument in Washington that was being unveiled to honor the black soldiers and sailors who served in the Civil War. I knew that my great-grandfather had been one. I can take you to his grave in northeastern Pennsylvania. But I was told at that time there had been no black soldiers who had served in white regiments, where I knew that my great-grandfather, an identifiably black man, had served in one. So I set out to find out if, since he was one, if there had been more than one. As a biologist, I made the hypothesis that if there was one, there was more than one. And I have found the names of over 3,000 black men who were forgotten during the Civil War. I used to go to reunions and listen to some of the older women regaling their stories of how happy they were at Bennett. They were so happy to see each other every 5 years. And I said, since I was already an author now, maybe these memoirs should be recorded. So I set out to ask different Bennett women. The oldest one at that time was 106 years old, lady from Washington, D.C. And they told me how they got to Bennett, what Bennett meant to them, And so I started out with one book, and I've ended up with 3 books of the history of Bennett women, reflecting the history of the United States. When I was 13 years of age, I was at a youth rally, and I got up from my seat to give my life to Jesus. The song that was being sung was "Where He Leads Me, I Will Follow." And He has directed me down many paths all of my life, and I have tried to go where He has taken me, where He has directed me to go. And so what I would advise young people is to first trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and the promise, He will guide your life. He has guided my life, and that is my story.